Okay, let's begin. I am Lanice Antoine Shelley, and I'll be your host through constructive, healing-based conversations designed to illuminate the adoptee, parents, and the adoption curious. We center the topics around community, mentorship, leadership, and healing, so you get a multi-dimensional view that is ultimately empowering. These are the voices who could not speak when they were young. Hey y'all, if you've seen me on Instagram, I'm in my summer glow phase and I am unapologetic about it. My hair is luscious. Fun fact, I didn't start properly treating and doing my own hair until I was a grown adult because like many Black adoptees, no one showed me how to do my own hair. And because I love you all so much, I'm going to share with you my hair secret. I'm always on the lookout for things you'd love and things that will enhance your well-being inside and out. We Unique Cosmetics sent me their Moisture Lock pomade and scalp and hair therapy oil from their Metamorphosis line, and it's so decadent, light, and nourishing, fam. This has become a hair routine staple. It has a soft lemongrass scent that people comment on when I walk by or when they're doing my hair because now I have boho locks. They also sent me a 15% discount link for you to try their products and hair tutorial service. And Unique Cosmetics is Black owned and operated by a mother and daughter duo dedicated to helping the adoptee community. Check out the link in the show notes. And this is for all ages, fam. So tell your friends. So come on, embark on a hair-loving journey with We Unique World. From interactive workshops to premium products, they're all about empowering you to embrace your unique hair journey. Because remember, all hair is good hair, especially when it's healthy. Hey there, fam. How are you? There are so many feelings I've been having this week. I think the entire world has been waiting with breath abated the last 4 days. This election is brutal on the adrenal glands. I hope you're finding different ways to decompress and distract yourself a little. It's beautiful in Chicago, so I've taken my bike out and gone to the beach every day to sit and meditate or just listen to music. We will continue to be inundated with emotions, and I just want to tell you that it's okay to feel anger, confusion, elation, doubt, or whatever. Please feel all the feels and then do what makes you feel grounded, like exercising or watching a comedy or something. Breathe and let it move through you. We'll get through this together, okay? All right, this is the conclusion of Richard and Lionel's discussion on adoption. As aforementioned, this series is designed to inspire you, to model possibilities for your own life and give you ideas on how to approach this raw topic. I will admit, I did not grow up talking about adoption in my house, so therefore I was not conditioned as an adult to process it. I have done all of this work on my own, like most of us do. But we don't have to. We can start earlier so that the word adoption is not a trigger that haunts us. I couldn't say that word without feeling shame until a few years ago. We can learn to wield our current circumstances so that these words like abandoned, rejected, orphan, adoptee no longer cripple us or hold true. We then are able to square up to our own stories without flinching, reclaim our narrative and say with our full chest, yes, that was me, but this is who I am becoming. Also, you will hear a lot of Christian references on this podcast, but that's only because many Christians tend to adopt. But this podcast is for everyone of all faiths and identifications. Now, Richard and Lionel conclude their conversation on the efficacy of adoption support groups and how one prepares a Black child for the Black community and the police. At the very end, I check in with Lionel to see how it went for him. It's all so good. I've met many adoptees on this journey, and Lionel Boivert is truly one of my favorite humans. Let's get to it.
All right. So let's continue as far as What are the greatest lessons that you think might help other parents?
Can I say one more thing before we go on?
Sure.
And it's something that I found out when you left to go to Winthrop. You didn't exactly clean your room. And so I went in there to clean and do things, and I stumbled over something. And it was essays that you had written in your honors English class in high school, I think your senior year.
Mm-hmm.
And I read those essays. One had to do with when Jose left and how you felt. And I had never, I've got a little chronology to tell you why I didn't see it, because there were so many things going on that year. But I didn't realize the impact of his leaving, going to the Navy, had on you as a 3-year-old, because you really were tied to him. He'd speak Creole to you. He'd tease you, or he made you scream and holler a lot. He liked to tease you. But it wasn't until I read that essay that I realized the impact that it had on you, because you really missed him. The Barlin skating situation, where they would not allow Carolyn, you and I roller skating. They did if it was just me, because I tried it. I went up there and they were ready to let me in. And when I said I need to go get my family because they want to roller skate too, the minute they saw 2 blacks and a white, no more membership. So that went on into the newspapers with the Human Relations Committee, and the man lied. You remember Mary Anderson? Her sister had gone with a black girl that same time and been refused, and she was upset. She wrote, at the same time this was going on with us, she wrote a letter to the editor as a 12-year-old and told him that man, what he had done. And he was telling us, to the community, that he wasn't prejudiced or anything like that. And so I stumbled over that letter that Heather wrote, and I shared it with her mother. She said, "Oh, I remember that." I said, "Well, I had it." But that was, by December, I said, "Lord, I can't take any more. Things have got to stop. It's overwhelming." It was nonstop that whole year. I'm ready now for question 5.
Yeah, no, thank you for taking it back. Next question, as far as what are some of the lessons you think, from your experience in all of this, that might help out other parents, whether it's, couples or, single parents like yourself?
Well, to begin with, don't have any preconceived notions of what it's going to be like, because it's not going to be that way. I mean, every preconceived notion you might have is going to be shattered.
What were some that you had, before I arrived?
Sometimes you think about, I'm going to tell the child what to do and all this other stuff, and they're going to be compliant.
Yeah, that's just like regular parenting stuff.
But that doesn't happen, as you well know. There were things that happened during the process. I'll give you an example of Bates Middle School. When you were nominated for the Beta Club and you never told me, and I found the letter in your bag at some point later and realized that you should have been there, and because you didn't want to be, you were a jock and you were also very intelligent, but you didn't want to be that intelligent part because it created problems for you. And so a lot of times parents, that boosts them up when things like that happen, as far as being nominated for these clubs and stuff. But you also have to understand, it's not always going to happen the way you want it to, because of situations in that are happening. Especially talking about a black-white situation.
Right. So that I think the question's more so from a transracial far as preconceived notions.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's hard to come up with it 31 years later, but wanting a relationship all the time with your children, even during adolescence, and we had a rough time from when you were about 9 years old until after you got out of high school.
And I think what I've learned, as an adult now, and especially like meeting everybody that's in this Haitian adoption Facebook group, people that I've met from that group, that's been in either the South, or they've been in Canada or other parts of the U.S. is some have similar situations as me, as far as, okay, you were the only Black, or our family dynamic was the only one in that community.
Mm-hmm.
Or there was some kind of support system that helped them along the way, which I didn't really have. And so I think when you're talking about some of the issues that we had, it was primarily because, in my mind, there wasn't an outlet to get the support that I needed in particular.
Okay, let me jump in there. There were attempts, we formed, and I was part of the founding group of the Single Adoptive Support Group, to try to get the kids together and the parents together to support each other. And it didn't work out. We did meet over the years, but it didn't really work out to support you. We did Children Unlimited for a while, which was another adoption support group. And there were a lot of minorities involved there, because that was for special needs kids, and they consider older kids special needs. And we would go to weekend things from time to time. That was there to do that, but it didn't work, because for some reason, the kids didn't share those kinds of things. I mean, those were some of the attempts, but it didn't work.
Yeah, and it didn't work. It didn't work because it didn't really mirror the environment that we were in, which was, for the people listening, Sumter, South Carolina, where the demographic is, I don't know what the percentage might be, maybe 60-40 white, Black.
That's good. Yeah, that's about right.
And the issue more so was, how do you prepare, your Black son for what the Black community might think of your family dynamic? Is ultimately what it boils down to. And when I'm talking about, I didn't have the support system to deal with some of the issues that might have come from that, especially during the middle school years, was the roughest time. But, it really started early on in elementary school. And not having, and I think those that are in the same situation, the other Haitian adoptees that are in the same situation, might have had a sibling that they could have turned to, or, some others in the area or in the community that they might have, gone to for support. That wasn't the case, for me. And I think that's why it was a lot tougher, and it was rough for us, trying to navigate how do we deal with this during that time.
I did make an attempt, I thought, adopting a second child after you. Now,
I never knew that.
Yeah, there I was discouraged a lot, because they didn't think that I was able to handle two as a single parent, that it would be overwhelming.
You're talking about the age.
I did, and Francis. I think other
about
people.
and about at what age was?
Well, you were probably 4 or 5, and that they did not support because they thought that was just too much for one person to be able to do that, and they were probably right because I wasn't getting any younger.
And again, having a wife and a partner to deal with one, it's already tough enough. So I can imagine just like trying to deal with, a 4 and a toddler, what that might have looked like.
Yeah, well, we'll move on.
But
taking parenting classes.
Right. So just continue with that response.
Having a support system, very important. Be ready to deal with racism. And I'll give you a couple things that happened when you were real small. You were 3 or 4. You were playing with this little white girl across the street. And you were an outdoors kid. You like being outdoors, not indoors. And then all of a sudden, you start staying indoors and not wanting to go out. And I started thinking, I said, something's wrong here. Because this is an outdoor child, not an indoor. And now for the last day or 2, he's been staying indoors. And he doesn't want to go out. So I finally asked you the right question. I don't know what that question was, but you told me what had happened. That little girl told you that she couldn't play with you anymore. And now they moved 2 weeks later. Now, I was pissed. I was pissed off. So what I did is, you said, I must be ugly, I must be dumb. That's why she doesn't want to play with me. And I said to myself, okay, how do I counteract that? I got a mirror. I said, look at this. You're a handsome little boy. You're not ugly. I said, well, you're not dumb because you're the first in your class in preschool. So you're not dumb. And I had to keep on emphasizing that. And after a couple of days, you started going out again and, your normal behavior. They moved. Subtle things, but see, if I hadn't asked the question, I would not have found out what was going on. But what was the question? That's hard to come up with when you're talking about maybe a 4-year-old.
Sure.
Prepare a child for dealing with the police. I remember when you were in middle school, you were riding your bicycle on the bridge around where Simpson's Hardware was. And this girl that you knew accused you of stealing her bicycle. Luckily, I was home when you called me. And I went straight there. Mr. Mills was working at Simpson's, and he stayed with you until I got there. And here, her mother, I was really disgusted with her, the way she acted. And I said to them, I can produce the bill of sale for this bicycle. Can you? And she couldn't. But the police confiscated the bicycle, and I had to go get the bill of sale and go to the police station to prove to them that was your bicycle. Now, I didn't know how to get in touch with that woman, but I would expect her to give you an apology. But I didn't know how to get a hold of her. I mean, I was livid. The way she was treating you. And I'm sure it had to do because of color, even though she was black, but I was white. But I'm glad that I used to keep receipts so I could prove that it was your bicycle.
But to your point, like especially in these times, is you got to have those conversations. I don't think we ever had any additional conversations as far as like, all right, what to do, what to expect when you're out, or when you're approached by law enforcement. I don't think we had those talks, but
the talks that we did have is make sure you call me. If anything like that happens, call me.
that's true. Yeah.
A lot of times we parents mess up. We shouldn't be afraid to apologize. And I've apologized to you a couple, 2-3 times probably over the years. But if you did wrong, you need to let them know. Just like if the child does wrong, they need to let you know. It works both ways. But a lot of times parents don't do that, but you need to be upfront.
That's definitely a big one. And I've done the same for you as well.
Yeah. There's no cookbook for parenting adoptive or biological children. We do it by the seat of our pants most of the time. That's it, That's all I got to contribute to that question.
Hey, I want to share with you something that has changed my life. It's more like someone, my therapist. Why is she so important? Well, because I want to win in this life. I want to break through the carousel of stories I've compiled that hold me back, that keep me from expanding into my full potentiality. Stories of unworthiness, not enoughness, and even stories of questioning why I am here. I also want to stop dumping my unsorted feelings on the people around me and reacting with the same behavioral patterns that keep me stuck. Conversations with my therapist have made me more confident, clearer in my intention, and more centered in my spirit. That is why I am elated that we are sponsored by BetterHelp, where you can, from wherever you happen to be right now, match with a therapist tailored to your exact needs. With BetterHelp, you can tap into a network of over 30,000 licensed and experienced therapists who can help you with a wide range of issues. Someone who you can text at any time and schedule online for either a chat, Zoom, or phone call. And if it turns out that your therapist isn't the right fit, you can switch to a new therapist at no additional cost. Visit the link in the show notes, betterhelp.com, when they were young, to get 10% off the first month. You need to click the link in the show notes in order to get the 10% discount. I want to see you win, beloved. Let's do it together. Visit the link, betterhelp.com, when they were young.
What about the culture of Black culture and really inundating yourself with that and preparing for the adolescent years, for our situations where, you're going to be in a community that has a larger Black population. I went through stuff that Andre probably didn't go through just because of, the communities that we lived in and the demographics around it.
Mm-hmm. It's, those are very difficult issues to address, but they definitely need to be addressed. It's important. It's important that especially teenagers or pre-teenagers need some kind of way of venting when they need to talk about things that have happened and how they're feeling. But that's an area that I don't know. It's important, but I don't know how to deal with it.
Well, I don't think you did, and that was one of the. I think that was one of the reasons why we had the issues that we did and clashed the way that we did, was because
that wasn't there.
I didn't have any guides as far as how to approach things that I was dealing with, from my peers, whether it was right or wrong, or, just dealing with like the stereotypes of, okay, this is what the Black community is telling me I need to be like, or dress like, or, music to listen to, all of that. Later on, you find out, no, that not necessarily. It doesn't. You don't put yourself in a box. Like, you don't have to be in a box because this small group is telling you that you need to. Those types of issues, I think, can definitely go a long way to help prepare for those times in those years, where you're going to be easily influenced, one way or another.
I had the concerns, but I didn't know what to do about them. Because there was a group there that were not achievers, but wanted to bring you down to their level. And I think you probably know who I'm, the group that I'm talking about. I don't have a name for the group, but they're there. They go to school because they have to, but they're not there to achieve and not there to do well after high school. And they want other Blacks that are smarter or more motivated to come down to their level where they're not going to achieve either.
And I would say, and it's not necessarily just that group. I think in our situation, or where we lived, it's complex. It really is, when it comes down to the mindset of the Black community or Black identity, and where you fit into that. I think if you're a white parent for transracial adoption, it's like, all right, you got to really put yourself there, as far as what are some of the things that the child might face because of where you live.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
And that's where it comes down to, is like, okay, and you remember it, as far as, okay, like, early 90s, like, you have to have the baggy jeans and listen to, hardcore rap and speak in Ebonics. All of that was what I thought the Black culture and, the Black identity was. And that's what I was led to believe. And that's why I had to conform to be accepted.
Survival.
Right.
No parent wants their children to have to go through that. But it's a lot more difficult in our situation because there's no guide as to how to do that. That's definitely an area of need, even now. But I don't have any answers.
Some of the things that I've heard, being part of the Facebook groups and being part of these panels, is around therapists, and not only therapists, but maybe like big brother, big sister programs, those types of things as well, where, you really have a role model that you can bring in to say, okay, this is what's going on right now with you. Here's somebody that can bring another perspective that looks like you as well. It's some of the things that I've been thinking about, and, therapy is never anything that I can recall that was ever brought up for us. But I just am curious, did you ever think about it? Did you ever,
Yes,
want to bring it into the equation?
I did. And I think it was probably brought up to you at the wrong time because I brought it up to you when you were very angry about something. And I said something about, well, maybe you need to go to a counselor. And you just got upset with me. That was the only time that it was brought up, that one time. Because I did think about it, but you were not in a cooperating mood at the time.
Around what age?
Probably the only time that it was brought up.
Around what age do you think was that?
Maybe 12. It happened in the living room. I remember that. But you were probably about 12 years old.
Yeah, really looking back, I think that's definitely something that could be helpful to parents as far as, the timing of certain discussions as well.
Exactly.
Because if you're telling me it was around 12, that's, middle school, where it was basically an identity. I was definitely going through an identity crisis. But just the eye opener as far as, the world that we were living in and what was acceptable or a standard, for the rest of the community. But I think when it comes down to it, and it goes to the next question, is courage. And where in your life do you think you applied that courage, or where in your life moving forward even can you apply the courage?
I've got a list of that too. 1970, going up with a Black individual when you know that could be pretty serious stuff, but doing it anyhow. For me, accepting a position in Lee County in 1973, where I came from an all-white community basically, and going into an all-Black community, that was life-changing, to say the least.
Did you know the demographics at that time when you accepted it, or not?
I found out right after college graduation. I took a bus from Tampa and went to Bishopville, and then on my way home. And when I got off the bus, I went like, oh my God, what did I get myself into? And I spent 31 years there and grew and changed and made many friends. It was the right decision, but boy, it was as scary as can be.
But even at that time, though, it was like you could have decided, I don't want to do this. Like it was early on in your career. You could have decided, I don't want to do this. I'm 22, 23, whatever, and I could just go back, or
this is how
completely
close
different.
It got. I had made some friends with a teacher in Tampa who worked at the parochial school. I contacted her and said, is there any work over there for me? That was as far as it went, but it was thought of, believe you me. But it was not meant to be, and that was good. That was good. Courage is all the time. The Cursillo weekend, I didn't want to do that, but I did it. But
and what is Cursillo
weekend is a renewal weekend in the Catholic Church. In the Methodist Church, it's called a Walk to Emmaus. And there's other denominations have different programs, but it's like a 3-day workshop on your faith. And it was during that weekend that I got the gift of tears and the Holy Spirit. Now, the Holy Spirit was already in me, but it was not active. It was sleeping. And that weekend, it got alive, and it's been alive ever since. That's 38 years ago. Opened doors to prison ministry that I wouldn't do before. Homeless, foster care, adoption, all of that, and then some.
Would you say you had to have a lot of courage to go through the transracial adoption?
All of that, yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's not something that you do on the spur of the moment, and you do a lot of praying. I remember I figured that this was going to be a very difficult period because I was male and single. And so I prayed daily the rosary every day for 2 years. And what it did is I had no problem. It paved the way. The power of prayer is unbelievable.
So basically, you were at peace with whatever comes out of this.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to be.
Your will be
Take it on.
done. Your will be done, not mine. You know, the Lord uses our brokenness to do some good. If you know, you can't wait till you're perfect to do something, because you'll never be perfect. You're always going to have some parts of you that are broken. But that doesn't mean that you don't do things because of it.
A lot of courage. You know, you had to have a lot of courage from your end to go through, you know, bringing a Black Haitian into community for sure. You had to know that you were going to get judged and called out and all these different things. Where, again, I think you mentioned just how Curcio prepared you to just be like, all the outside noise is not going to matter because I'm prepared to do this type of deal.
Now, that's not saying that I'm not afraid. Most of the time when I walk in faith like that, I am afraid, but I still do it.
I think when it comes down to it is, especially trying to have a transracial family is extremely difficult. There's a lot of obstacles you got to overcome, a lot of things you got to be prepared for. And, you know, when it comes down to it is you're going to be tested in a lot of different ways. That's going to take courage to overcome, as far as ways that we can help other parents or prospective parents that may want to go down this path. It's really just having a support system, you know, just really having a support system for yourselves, but also for the adoptees as well. And really trying to be proactive as far as things that they may potentially go through, assessing the community that you live in, having an understanding of the Black culture, just finding ways to make this path of life easier for them. And again, as I've gotten older, you know, what does that mean? This, you know, what does a support system look like? For me, it's become being part of a group, you know, this Haitian adoption group, being willing to have discussions that may open up some wounds, you know, for healing, which, you know, is definitely necessary. Being vulnerable, how you deal with those vulnerabilities, you know, looking at things or people such as therapists or counselors as people that will help you get through situations instead of it being a weakness for yourself. Those types of things are definitely crucial as far as the healing and just getting through it process. So a lot of things to be learned, and I'm definitely glad I've been part of the discussion.
Well, I'm learning more as we talk, not just right now, but you know, we talk on the phone or FaceTime and stuff. You know, I'm learning more about the group. I'm glad that you connected me with what Lanice is doing so I can view and continue to learn myself. I viewed a lot of the information that's on her Facebook page. And I want to continue to do that so I can continue to grow and learn in those areas, even though you're on your own now, that doesn't mean that I stopped learning. I still need to continue to learn.
It never stops. So
that's right. Lifelong learning.
All right, Dad. Well,
I've enjoyed my time with you. Love you.
I love you too.
Till the next time.
All right.
I'm good. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I loved listening to your conversation with your dad. And how did you feel about it?
I felt good.
Lionel, I'm going to drop.
No, it was a good talk. I think I learned some new things. We've had similar conversations before. I would say in the past, I don't know, like 5-10 years. But I did learn some new things that was good to know. Like you said, we were able to go a little deeper into things, and I think the questions, how everything was laid out, made it a good dialogue as far as new insights from my end, at least.
So, what were the new things that you learned?
The biggest piece that I really learned was how he had thoughts as far as adopting a sibling for me. At a very young age. And like I told him, that would have been crazy to me as a single parent, trying to, put that on your plate, in addition to trying to raise a transracial Haitian from the onset, just trying to put that on your plate, with a 4 or 5 year, I don't know like exactly when he was thinking about doing it, but as a parent now with a toddler, I can't even imagine trying to take on 2 by yourself. So that was that was very surprising to hear, and I'm glad that he listened to others and chose not to do it. So. That definitely was the biggest takeaway.
Well, your perspective as a dad now, I'm sure you understand how much of a teamwork it takes to raise a child. And he was on his own, even though it sounded like you had a lot of just relative support from his family.
Yeah, definitely. And I mentioned it on our talk as far as taking a village to raise a child, because that really was how he was able to be successful in it. I think we both at this point can say that it turned out okay. I'm in a good spot. He's in a good spot. So,
you guys were really sweet at the end.
What's that?
You guys were really sweet at the end.
Yeah, I mean, I owe so much to him, and as an adult now, I definitely can look back at all the struggles that we had and can empathize more for what he had to deal with and how he had to go about doing things. When you're living it, you feel some type of way, but you don't really understand like how everything works or the level of effort that he's given to just do everything that he can that's in his control. I think a lot of the struggles that we had were some things that were out of his control, some things that maybe he just didn't prepare for or wasn't proactive about. But it's just, hindsight is like, look, as new parents, you can only do the best that you can, given the circumstances. So from that standpoint, I definitely really appreciated everything that he did during those times. And, he mentioned it as well, as far as there's some things that he could have done better as well. So, we've had a lot of those moments over the years. So it was good to hear again.
It was really fascinating to hear your perspective of growing up in a very racially fraught community and all of the racism that you both encountered because of your proximity to a BIPOC person. Did your dad say anything new to you in that respect of his perspective?
Again, it was more things that I had heard before from our talks, and as far as all the things that I encountered, I really think that I was fortunate as far as the amount of outright racist things that I might have experienced. What he mentioned were things that I went through, or he observed, or had to deal with when I was young. This was probably 4 or 5 or 6 when some of these things happened. But after that, like, I can't remember any big incidents, that impacted me, that really stand out. In that sense, I really was fortunate as far as the issues being like just straight like racist, like, from, white, black. And I think a lot of that had to do with, things I was involved in, and being good at those things. And then, gaining a lot of respect for, some of the talents that I had.
Yeah, you grew up a star student. I didn't know that, Lionel. Well done.
I mean, thank you. But I think as far as some of the things that I was talking about, and of course, school was definitely stressed upon me, as my dad was an educator in the school system for over 40 years. But for me, it was more about like some of the other activities I was involved in, from soccer to piano to some of the other arts as well. So just being able to be good at those things and make friends and gain the respect of my peers, both white and black at the time, really helped out as far as them treating me a certain way, or possibly not having to go through as much racist incidents or issues because of that. I think that really played a major part.
Well, growing up a Black man in white America and in a white community, how was that being raised by a white person growing up as a Black man? Do you think that you were prepared for the world?
That's a good question. Being prepared for the world. How can you, is anyone ever really prepared for the world? That's a very good question. I think the way that I looked at it is, look, we one day, we're taken from our country and placed into this new community. And it's like, all right, do the best that you can. There weren't any instructions for anybody that's Haitian adoptee or transracial adoptee. I mean, it's just like, look, okay, this is your life now. And, you got to deal with whatever, issues are placed in this community. So from that standpoint, I wasn't ready, but I did. It was one of those things. I look at it like, you don't know what you don't know. And I think I mentioned this when me and my dad talked, but it was more of the culture shock of the expectations or being placed in a box from, the Black community and what that really meant. From that standpoint, I definitely was not prepared as far as, these are some of the things that, in certain people's eyes in that community make you Black, whether that's the way that you talk, the way that you dress, all those different things probably could have been, it would have helped my situation had my dad, at least mentioned some of those things or things to look out for.
But you had a lot of Black role models growing up, whether it be from sports or school, and it sounded like your dad made it a point to expose you to more people of color. Did you feel that? Was that helpful in your upbringing?
I think it definitely was. and he did a good job at it. But I think what it comes down to is, how are you treated by your peers? And during our years when we struggled, it was more about, look, everything that you're doing is great, but these are things that I have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. When I go to school, I can't just turn it off or get away from it. Like, I have to face it. And, in my eyes, it's like, you can't help me with that, or you haven't been able to help me with that. So now I'm in a tough spot. I'm in an uncomfortable position. The spotlight's always on me as far as, okay, well, people know that I have a white dad, or a lot of people do, or, when we go to certain events, you can't hide it. You can't hide the fact that, this man is with you and he's your father. And, there's going to be questions around it that he doesn't answer. He doesn't have to answer. He doesn't have to go to school and answer those types of questions every day, or, live with people constantly picking at you, for all these different things. So those were some of the things that I wasn't really prepared and ready for. And it's just like, when you have to deal with it on the fly, it can definitely be tough.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for doing it, Lionel. I so appreciate you. And it was a beautiful conversation. I was impressed. Yeah. I thank you. It means so much.
No, I appreciate it. I think this platform has been good for, both the podcast and some of the panel discussions that we've had. Because I think a lot of us have really been either wanting or needing to express, some of these things that we've dealt with, to get healing from ourselves, or from what you're looking to do is to help others that are in similar situations, or might be in the future. So from that standpoint, I'm definitely been grateful to have been part of the discussion.
Here are my reflections. 1, who are the people the adoptees have to answer to? When they go to school and no one is there to protect or field questions, how do we prepare them for that? You acknowledge the narrative burden. Every day for an adoptee, there are microaggressions, or we out ourselves with having to explain to strangers our precious stories because we don't look like our family, or someone asks a medical question we can't answer. Discussing these things early takes the power and the shame out of the situation. 2, temper your expectations because the child will tell you who they are. 3, what are the outlets to get the support that both the child and the parent need? The support group needs to mirror the demographic that you are in. 4, how do you prepare your Black son for the Black community? It's an inevitable encounter. I would say you expose them early and often. That can be with music, food, movies, and seeking out mentors. 5, pay attention to the child's community and what is happening in the culture so that the child can move through these groups or code switch more seamlessly. I have a list of positive influencers that show examples of hair products, style, food, and music on my resource page at laniceantoineshelley.com, or you can go to Instagram at YoungAdoptee. Lastly, but most importantly, are you ready to deal with racism? As we have seen through this year and the past week has compounded the truth that racism is alive and thriving. There is so much content available that assists you on the anti-racism journey. I suggest reading How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibrahim X. Kendi. You can find more resources for all ages on my website. I want to extend a wholehearted thank you to Richard and Lionel Boivert for such an honest look into their adoption journey. It took immense courage and generosity to share this conversation with us, so thank you. Many lives will be indelibly changed because of it. If you want to give someone or yourself something rare and wonderful, go to Island Creole Box, which is a large box filled to the brim with affirmations, bath bombs, Haitian coffee, and other treats. Each box is different and a wonderful surprise to open. You listeners get 30% off your purchase with code COURAGEMyLove. Next week, we have a new adoptee conversation with her parents, and it is just as compelling. So please tune in. Thank you for listening. I so appreciate you. Another beautiful episode. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you to my guest today. If you liked this episode, the best way to support me and this work is to write an iTunes review, a 5-star review. This helps us reach the top of searches and helps more people to find us. And if you personally want to connect, please reach out on Instagram or Facebook. And I have some great resource material on my website at laniceantoineshelley.com. So go on over there too. Until next we meet, go gently and have courage, my love.